Hello there, and welcome to Bedtime Science Stories. Tonight we're drifting into one of the quietest, strangest places in the universe. A place with no light, no sound, yet it quietly shapes everything around it. The world of black holes. They're not stars and they're not planets. They're silent thresholds where light pauses, time slows, and your mind can finally loosen its grip on the worries of the day. And if you enjoy gentle, sleepy explorations like this, feel free to like the video, subscribe, or share a thought in the comments below. Small things like that help others find their way to this peaceful corner of the universe too. And now, let's begin. Black holes begin their lives in a way that is almost quiet. A massive star reaches the end of its journey, its fuel spent, its light fading, and instead of exploding outward forever, it folds inward. It collapses under its own weight, layers falling into layers until something entirely new is born. Not a star, not a planet, not anything the universe offers a simple name for. It becomes a place where gravity gathers itself into a single, powerful whisper. And you can imagine that whisper pulling matter closer, closer, closer still. Here is a small thought to keep you with me. Most of the drama of a star's death happens silently. The universe does not mark it with thunder. The transformation feels almost gentle from far away. And that gentleness makes the idea strangely comforting. Something ends, something else quietly begins. A soft hook that draws you a little deeper into the dark. As the collapse tightens, gravity strengthens past every rule we know. First it tugs at atoms, then light, and eventually it reaches a point where nothing can escape, not even the fastest thing in existence. Light tries to rise from its surface, but its path bends back, curved by gravity's insistence. It is a strange thought that something can be so heavy it traps brightness itself. Yet the universe allows it. And somehow, you do too. Here is another small hook, just enough to keep your listening steady. Think about how light usually behaves. It moves freely, without effort. It colors sunsets, it fills rooms, it reveals the world. And now imagine that same light refusing, bending, looping back into the dark because something is strong enough to hold it. The fact alone makes you want to stay one moment more, just to understand how such a place exists. Scientists have studied the collapse of stars for decades, but no one has truly seen the final instant. That moment when everything folds in completely. It is hidden behind the darkness the collapse creates, a sealed event we cannot witness directly. We can calculate around it, infer its shape, imagine its behavior, but the last breath of a collapsing star remains an unanswered question. A mystery wrapped so tightly that even our best instruments cannot peel it open. And mysteries, especially quiet ones, have a way of holding your attention without ever raising their voices. Pause here with me for a heartbeat. There is something deeply human about wanting to know how a story ends. But with black holes, the ending is private. The curtain falls before we can see the final act. And that sense of not knowing does something interesting. It keeps you present. It keeps you listening. It keeps your thoughts returning to the dark, like waves returning to shore. Move closer, just a little. Imagine standing near the edge of a black hole. Not close enough to fall in, but close enough to feel its effect on time. That edge is called the event horizon, a boundary where time stretches like soft taffy. A second becomes longer. A minute becomes heavier. Hours lose their shape. To someone far away, you would appear to slow down until you almost stop, frozen in a moment you cannot feel. And here is a subtle hook tucked inside this idea. Time is something we take for granted. We assume it moves at the same pace everywhere, for everyone. But near a black hole, time behaves like a living thing. It stretches, folds, hesitates. It becomes elastic. And the simple thought that time can change so dramatically invites your mind to settle in and wander at the same time. It keeps you watching because you sense there is more to uncover, more to feel. While all of this is happening from the outside, something different is happening inside you. You begin to notice that the idea of slowing down feels familiar. Time stretching, thoughts easing, the pace of your mind growing soft. Perhaps this is one of the hidden gifts of thinking about black holes. They remind you how silence feels, how stillness feels, how the world softens when you stop rushing. It leaves you with a final reflection. Endings, even cosmic ones, are not always abrupt. Even something as powerful as a dying star takes its time, folding slowly into darkness. And that slowness offers a kind of peace. It tells you that transformation does not always roar. Sometimes it barely speaks. Sometimes it arrives like a long exhale after a long day. And you rest with that idea that even the universe, with all its collisions and explosions and unimaginable forces, allows certain endings to be soft. It allows them to stretch out, to take time, to become something new while still being quiet. And in the space between these thoughts, your mind finds room to breathe, room to drift, room to settle into a calm that feels almost gravitational in its pull. Hold on to that calm for a moment more. Let it linger. Because the deeper we go into these mysteries, the more you may find that the universe mirrors your own inner landscape. Vast, quiet, filled with places where time slows just enough for you to rest. When we left off, we were standing near the edge of a black hole, watching time soften around us like candlelight melting into a quiet room. Now we move just a little closer, until we reach a boundary that is unlike anything else in the universe. It is called the event horizon, the point of no return, a thin, invisible shell that divides what can be seen from what cannot. It does not glow or shimmer or warn you away. It simply exists, calm, patient, absolute. And here is the first small hook to keep you drifting with me. Think about thresholds on Earth, doorways, shorelines, the moment you step from light into shadow, the instant your foot leaves land and touches water. The event horizon feels like one of those thresholds, but stretched across the fabric of space itself. It invites curiosity instead of fear. It makes you want to lean in, just to feel what happens. From the perspective of someone far away, something odd unfolds. If you moved toward the horizon, your motion would appear to slow down. Each step takes longer. Each breath stretches. The closer you get to the boundary, the more you seem to freeze in place. You hover there, suspended in a moment that refuses to pass. Time for the outside world keeps moving, but your image stays near the edge like a photograph that refuses to fade. This is where the next micro hook settles in. Imagine being watched by someone light years away. They blink, they age, decades pass, and you remain at the boundary, unmoving, unchanged, still reaching for the horizon. To them, it looks as if time has abandoned you. But to you, inside your own experience, everything continues normally. Your heartbeat stays steady. Your thoughts move the way they always have. You do not feel stretched or slowed. You simply continue. This contradiction is part of what makes black holes so strangely beautiful. Two realities unfolding at once. Both true. Both impossible to experience directly. And as you think about this, a quiet sense of wonder begins to rise, settling into your mind like a feather, landing on soft ground. Now imagine letting yourself drift one step past the horizon. There is no jolt, no shift, no moment where the universe announces a change. Instead, everything feels almost too gentle. Space around you stretches, but slowly, delicately, as if the fabric of the cosmos is made of something warm and pliable. Something like taffy that has been sitting in the sun. It pulls, but it does not tear. It curves, but it does not snap. And here is another hook that keeps your attention steady without raising your pulse. We often think of space as empty, cold, sharp-edged. But near a black hole, the universe behaves like something alive. It bends, it yields, it welcomes and reshapes. You sense the rules changing, not in a violent way, but in a way that feels almost artistic. As if gravity is sculpting space with the same care a painter uses on a canvas. This is one of the softest truths about black holes, that even in their strength, there is elegance. Even in their mystery, there is order. You do not need equations or detailed diagrams to feel that. You only need the image of space stretching like warm taffy, a simple picture that carries more meaning than any formula. Another moment passes, slow and gentle, and you notice something else. Understanding is not required here. You do not need to grasp every theory or every number to feel the beauty of what is happening. Some experiences are meant to be witnessed quietly, the way you watch a tide roll in or clouds drift across a night sky. The beauty is not in the explanation, it is in the experience. And here is a micro hook that sits lightly in your thoughts. Humans often try to make sense of everything. We reach for meaning, definition, clarity. Yet some of the most extraordinary things in the universe do not ask us to understand them. They only ask us to note them, to stay long enough to feel something shift inside us. Black holes invite that kind of noticing. They invite a slower way of thinking. Let yourself sit with that. A slower way of thinking, a gentler pace, the mind pulling back from its usual urgency and letting curiosity breathe. In this softened place, ideas flow differently. They linger, they echo, they settle into deeper parts of you. Imagine looking around as you drift inward. Space itself seems to stretch, but it stretches evenly, the way warm dough rises in a quiet kitchen. You feel changes in distance, in perspective, in the flow of time, but none of it feels threatening. It feels strangely natural. The universe is rearranging itself around you with the delicacy of someone adjusting a blanket, and the more you observe, the more peaceful it becomes. The universe is not trying to confuse you. It is not hiding secrets to frustrate you. It is simply showing you what it is. A place where rules bend but do not break. Where time slows but does not stop. Where beauty exists even when logic cannot fully explain it. Another soft hook waits here. Think about how many things in life feel the same way. Moments you cannot fully explain but still feel deeply. The hush of early morning, the weight of a warm mug in your hands, the quiet thrill of watching the first stars appear at dusk. You do not need to understand every reason behind them to appreciate their beauty. You simply feel it, and that is enough. The same is true with black holes. Their beauty does not lie in the mathematics that describes them, although the math is stunning. Their beauty lies in the way they make you pause. The way they bend your sense of reality, just enough to open a small window in your mind. Through that window, you glimpse a universe more fluid, more patient, more strange and gentle than you ever expected. Now imagine drifting even deeper. Space stretches further. Time changes shape. You feel distance becoming flexible, but you are not alarmed. You are simply present. And this presence is its own reward. It allows you to notice sensations you would normally rush past. The pull of gravity, the soft distortion of space, the widening of your own perspective. This is the heart of the reflection for this section. That feeling of being carried by something larger than yourself. Something ancient and steady and calm. You do not need to know every detail to trust the experience. You do not need to solve the mystery to appreciate its beauty. You simply need to stay with it long enough for the universe to reveal itself in its own quiet language. Understanding is not a requirement. Curiosity is enough. Attention is enough. Stillness is enough. And so you drift slowly, quietly into the deeper dark, letting the mystery speak without words, letting beauty unfold without explanation, letting the universe guide you not through knowledge, but through wonder. As you drift deeper into the gravity well, the space around you grows darker, quieter, and strangely more intimate. Everything that once felt distant now feels close. The stars outside the horizon blur into long ribbons of soft light. Time continues its slow stretch, and somewhere far ahead, hidden behind the layers of warped space, lies the most mysterious place in the universe, the singularity. If the event horizon is the gate, the singularity is the heart. A point of infinite density where the entire mass of a collapsed star is pressed into something smaller than a grain of sand, smaller than an atom, smaller than any measurement we can describe. It is not just tiny. It is beyond tiny. It is a place where everything that once had structure collapses into pure collapse. Here is your first micro hook. Even the word singularity carries weight. It suggests something solitary, unique, absolute. A place so extreme that space and time themselves lose the ability to behave. And that thought alone draws you in. Not with fear, but with curiosity. Because you know you are drifting towards something that no one, not even the greatest minds on Earth, has ever seen directly. Scientists often say that physics breaks down at the singularity. It is like writing a sentence and suddenly the grammar stops working. The words can no longer line up. The ideas stop making sense. Rules that have held the universe together for billions of years simply fall apart. Not violently, but quietly. As if nature herself shrugs and says this is as far as our understanding can go. Pause here with me for a moment. There is a strange comfort in knowing that even the universe has limits, that there are places where certainty softens and possibility widens. You are allowed to feel the edges blur. You are allowed to sit with questions that have no satisfying answer. And sometimes that is what keeps you listening. The soft pull of a mystery that refuses to solve itself too quickly. Now take another step inward. Let your imagination move slowly, like a deep breath. For decades, we pictured the singularity as a single point, infinitely small, infinitely dense, a mathematical dot where everything drops away. But new theories suggest something different, something wider, something more elegant. Instead of a point, the singularity might be a ring. Here comes your next micro hook. A ring changes everything. A ring has shape. A ring has space within it. A ring suggests movement, motion, rotation, a kind of cosmic spin. And when you imagine a ring instead of a point, the singularity becomes less like a dead end and more like a doorway. A loop floating in the dark, pulsing softly with the mass of a star that once burned bright. Some physicists imagine that this ring could lead to other regions of space-time, other realms, other universes, not as a wild fantasy, but as a quiet solution to equations that refuse to stay closed. But even if that is not true, the image of the ring itself is enough to keep your mind awake in the gentlest way. A loop of collapsed matter, shimmering with gravity so intense it bends the rules of everything we know. And here, between thought and wonder, sits a third micro-hook. Think of all the shapes that comfort us: circles, loops, rings. They remind us of cycles, of continuity, of something that comes back around. The idea that the singularity might resemble one of these shapes touches something human in you. It softens the darkness. It turns the unknown into something familiar. Let yourself drift deeper into that idea. Imagine the ring suspended at the center of the black hole, not glowing, not spinning wildly, but pulsing. Slowly, softly, like a heartbeat in the dark. A pulse that stretches space with every motion. A pulse that whispers old secrets of the universe, secrets older than stars, older than galaxies, older than time itself. This is where science blends with imagination, where the edges of fact blur into possibility, and you feel something shift inside you. Curiosity is no longer sharp. It becomes rounded, smooth, calm. You realize that the most powerful mysteries in the universe do not shout. They invite. They wait. Another micro hook settles here. You begin to recognize that the unknown does not have to be frightening. It can be gentle, it can be spacious, it can invite you to rest instead of forcing you to search for answers. Some questions are meant to be held, not solved. Some mysteries are meant to be felt, not defined. The singularity is one of those mysteries. It whispers instead of roars. It hides rather than reveals. It welcomes without explanation. And the more you imagine it, the more you feel yourself easing into a kind of cosmic acceptance. You no longer need every detail. You no longer need every equation. You simply follow the sensation of being pulled towards something vast and quiet. Now let your mind settle for a moment. Picture all the matter that once made up the star. Every atom, every particle, every photon. All of it collapsing inward until it becomes something new, something unrecognizable. That transformation, extreme as it is, reminds you of something deeply human. How change, even when intense, can create new forms of being. How endings, even when absolute, can hold beginnings curled gently inside them. That is the heart of this section. Not the math, not the theory, but the feeling. The feeling of approaching a mystery that does not resist you. The feeling of letting go of the need to fully know. You are not losing clarity. You are gaining space. You are gaining permission to rest in the unknown. Imagine now that you are floating just above the singularity, not falling, not straining, just hovering in its gravitational hum. The air around you feels thick with possibility. Time feels layered. Space feels curved, and you feel still, perfectly still. The kind of stillness that only arrives when you stop reaching for answers and start listening for rhythms. That is the rhythm of the singularity. A rhythm not measured in seconds, but in shifts of gravity. In the way space folds and unfolds, in the way the universe rearranges itself around something that refuses to obey. Let this final micro hook hold you for a breath. Sometimes the most beautiful things in the universe cannot be understood. They can only be witnessed, they can only be felt, and on nights like this, that is enough, more than enough. So you allow the unknown to feel gentle tonight. You let the mystery soften you. You let the darkness feel warm. And as you drift deeper into the story of the cosmos, you realize that curiosity and calm can coexist, that wonder can be peaceful, that the deepest questions can lull you, not wake you, and the singularity waits quietly, not demanding anything, not promising answers, just existing, pure and silent, holding the remains of a star that once lit the sky, and holding your attention with a softness that feels almost gravitational. As you drift past the idea of the singularity, you begin to sense a new kind of movement in the dark around you. Not a pull downward, not a fall, but a slow turning, as if the space you are floating through has decided to rotate beneath you. You do not move by your own choice. You do not push. You do not swim. You simply feel the universe beginning to turn, and it takes you with it. This is the first sign that you are approaching something different from the calm collapse of earlier. You are approaching a spinning black hole, a place where rotation is not a detail but the defining feature. If a non-spinning black hole is like a quiet well of gravity, then a spinning one is like a whirlpool. A gentle one, a steady one, but a whirlpool all the same. Its rotation pulls the fabric of space along with it, twisting reality in a way nothing else in the universe can. Here is your first micro hook. Try to imagine the concept of space being forced to spin. Not planets, not stars, not objects floating in it. The space itself. Imagine air that turns even if you stand still. Imagine water that swirls even if you stay frozen in place. Now imagine that happening not to a fluid but to the structure of reality. It is a difficult idea, but the beauty of it is how simply it unfolds. Gravity spins, so space spins. And you, just by being here, spin with it. The region where this twisting becomes unavoidable has a name. The ergosphere. A word that feels almost like it belongs in poetry instead of physics. It wraps around the black hole like a soft shell, not fully inside the event horizon, but deeply influenced by the rotation. In this region, standing still is impossible. Space is moving, time is moving, and you are carried along with the flow. Pause with me here. Let that image settle. You cannot stay still even if you want to. The universe nudges you, gently but inevitably, in a slow circle. And instead of resisting, you simply let it happen. There is a strange peace in surrendering to forces older and larger than yourself. To understand this without the math, imagine a river, a calm river, the kind where the water moves lazily, folding over itself in soft spirals. If you were to step into that water, even if you tried to keep your body perfectly still, the current would take you. Slowly, gradually, almost kindly. You would drift with it because the water knows more about motion than you do. Here is the next micro hook to keep you drifting with me. The ergosphere is not a violent current. It is not a storm. It is not a force that slams you sideways. It is a steady, patient rotation. A cosmic river that has been flowing since the moment the star collapsed. A movement that will continue for billions of years. And if you let your imagination settle into it, you can almost feel that soft, circular pull in your own chest. Inside this region, something remarkable happens. Energy can be extracted. Not by magic, not by breaking the laws of the universe, but by leaning into the spin. Scientists call this the Penrose process, named after the physicist who described it. The idea is simple at its core. Because the black hole spins, you can steal a tiny fraction of that spin by dropping something into the ergosphere in the right way. It is as if the black hole's rotation is generous enough to give up a sliver of its energy to anything clever enough to ask. Pause again for a micro hook. Think about how unusual that is. Black holes are known for taking, for swallowing, for absorbing everything that gets too close, and yet here, in this twisted region, they give. Not much, not often, but the universe leaves a window open. A small reminder that even in the most extreme places, there is balance. Give and take. Pull and release. Motion and stillness meeting halfway. Now come back to the rotation itself. You feel the slow swirl around you, steady as a heartbeat. Everything rotates here. Light paths curve, matter spirals. Even time is bent into a soft circle. The deeper into the ergosphere you drift, the more pronounced that rotation becomes. But again, it is not violent, it is consistent, predictable, like the turning of a great wheel that has been spinning for so long, it no longer remembers when it started. And here is another micro hook. Think about how many things in life become less frightening when they are steady. A storm you can track, a rhythm you can feel, a pattern you can understand. That is the gift of the ergosphere. It transforms something incomprehensibly strong into something soothing by giving it a rhythm, a pulse, a predictable motion you can sync your breathing with. Let yourself feel that now. Inhale slowly. Feel the spin. Exhale slowly. Let yourself rotate with it. Each breath pulling you further into the motion. Each breath aligning you with the quiet mechanics of the universe. As you move deeper, you begin to realize something else. The twisting of space is not chaotic. It is not random. It has direction. It has purpose. Gravity and rotation join together to shape the space around the black hole the way wind shapes sand dunes. Smooth curves, soft arcs. Nothing wasted, nothing abrupt. You begin to see that the ergosphere is not just a physical structure, it is a sculpture carved by the universe itself. That thought alone creates another micro hook. The idea that the cosmos is not simply functional but artistic, not simply mechanical but expressive. It shapes the fabric of reality the way an artist shapes clay, and you, drifting in the ergosphere, are witnessing that art in motion. The closer you drift toward the black hole, the stronger the rotation becomes. But your fear does not rise with it. The softness of the pull calms you. The consistency of the motion reassures you. And soon you realize you are not fighting anything. You are being carried the way a leaf is carried in a mild current, not pushed, not shoved, just guided. Let yourself imagine that leaf now. A single leaf resting on the surface of a slow-moving river, turning gently, almost lazily, in the flow. The water decides the motion. The leaf simply follows. And it is in that effortless surrender that the leaf finds its peace. No struggle, no force, no urgency. You feel the same way now. Drifting, turning, carried. You understand that the universe is not asking you to interpret every detail, it is only asking you to feel, and in that feeling lies the beauty of the ergosphere. It is the beauty of movement without effort, the beauty of being part of a pattern older than time, the beauty of letting the cosmos guide you instead of trying to guide yourself. As you float in that slow spiral, you realize that this moment is teaching you something gentle. Something you can carry far beyond this black hole. That surrender is not the same as defeat. That letting go can be an act of wisdom. That moving with the current can be more powerful than resisting it. You allow that realization to settle in your mind the way light settles on water at dusk. Soft, quiet, steady. And as the ergosphere continues its slow turn around you, you let the sensation of being carried sink deeper into your thoughts. Tonight, in this twisting region of space, you discover a truth that has nothing to do with equations. A truth that feels warm instead of cold. A truth that you can hold without trying to solve. Sometimes the universe asks you not to think harder, but to feel deeper. Not to push, but to float. Not to resist, but to be carried like that single leaf in a gentle current. And once you accept that, the rotation no longer feels strange. It feels natural. It feels peaceful. It feels like the next step in your journey into the quiet heart of the cosmos. As you continue drifting through the gentle rotation of the ergosphere, something begins to change in the distance. At first it is subtle, like a shift in the quality of the dark, a quiet thickening, a presence you cannot quite name. Then you realize what you are sensing, another black hole. not close enough to touch, not close enough to disturb the rhythm around you, but close enough that its gravity has become a faint echo in the fabric of space. It is rare for black holes to find each other. Space is enormous, distances are vast. But sometimes, through slow drifts and ancient orbits, two of them wander near enough to begin a slow dance. Not a hurried collision, but a careful approach. They circle each other. They spiral. They curve through space as if tracing lines on invisible paper. All of it so slow that to a human watching, it would feel like the unfolding of a dream. Here is your first micro hook. Imagine two objects that cannot be seen, cannot shine, cannot speak, yet still manage to find each other across unimaginable emptiness. That quiet meeting alone keeps you listening. Because if even the darkness can meet, can connect, can merge, then there is something deeply poetic at the heart of the cosmos. As the two black holes come closer, their dance tightens. The gravity between them grows stronger. Their spirals shrink, turning from wide curves into smaller, quicker loops. Yet even now, the motion is fluid, graceful, not chaotic. You can almost picture them circling each other the way two leaves spin gently on a pond when the wind picks up. Drawn together by forces neither can resist, and then, after millions of years of drifting, the moment arrives when they merge. You might imagine this moment as violent, but it is not. It is powerful, yes, but not explosive. The collision does not tear the universe apart. Instead, it creates ripples, soft, steady ripples that travel outward in every direction. These ripples are not waves of light. They are not sound. They are distortions in the fabric of space-time itself. Pause with me for a breath. Let that idea settle. Space, time, rippling, like water in a quiet pond when a stone drops into it. That image alone creates the next micro-hook. Something as unimaginable as a black hole merger can be understood through something as simple as a ripple. That bridge between the cosmic and the familiar is what keeps your mind anchored in the story. Scientists call these ripples gravitational waves. They stretch and squeeze space as they travel. Not enough for you to feel. Not enough to shake the ground, but enough to make the universe shiver in ways too small for humans to notice without extraordinary instruments. Even then, the waves are delicate. Soft cosmic vibrations that whisper rather than roar. Imagine the universe humming. Not loudly, not forcefully, but with a deep, steady tone that moves through everything. It is not a sound your ears could hear, but it is a movement your imagination can follow. A long, slow hum traveling across galaxies, passing through stars, drifting across cold interstellar clouds, and eventually, after billions of miles, brushing past Earth. Here is another micro hook. Imagine being alive at the moment we first heard those ripples, not with ears. With detectors so sensitive they can measure a change smaller than the width of a proton. In 2015, the world heard the first confirmed gravitational wave, a whisper from two black holes that merged over 1 billion years ago. A message that traveled across time to find us. On Earth, detectors like LIGO and Virgo act like giant ears pressed against the skin of the universe. They listen, patiently, for the faintest tremor. Miles-long tunnels of laser light wait for space itself to stretch or contract by the tiniest fraction. It is not easy for them to hear. The world is noisy, cars, footsteps, wind, distant storms. But every once in a while, when everything aligns, a faint ripple passes through and leaves a signature on the detectors. You can picture these detectors waiting in the dark. Quiet, focused, still. Like someone sitting by the edge of a lake in the middle of the night, listening for a single drop of water. That image becomes the next micro hook. The idea that humans built something capable of hearing the universe breathe. Something capable of catching stories carried across billions of years. Now imagine the gravitational wave moving through you. Not physically, but emotionally, conceptually. A long, deep hum stirring something inside you. This hum is not frightening. It is not chaotic. It is a lullaby. A low cosmic note that speaks of events far older than Earth. A note that reminds you how large the universe is, but also how connected everything can be. Let this realization settle in your chest. Black holes merge, and the universe responds. It ripples, it vibrates, it hums, and even though those waves weaken as they travel, they still reach us. They still touch us. They still whisper their history into our instruments and into our imagination. And that whisper is enough to remind you that the cosmos is a place full of stories, even in the darkest corners. As the hum continues, you begin to understand something deeper. These waves are not just signals, they are memories, records of ancient events preserved in the structure of reality. When you listen to a gravitational wave, you are listening to the last breath of a star's core, the final dance of two black holes circling each other, the sigh of the universe as it adjusts to a new shape. And here is another micro hook. You realize that the universe is constantly changing shape, constantly adjusting, constantly responding. It isn't a static place. It is alive with motion. It has tides, it has rhythms, it has its own music. And you, floating in this endless night, are a listener, a witness, someone who gets to feel the quiet vibrations of creation itself. Now picture the merger from a great distance. The black holes disappear into a single, larger one. The surrounding space settles. The ripples continue outward, fading as they go. And then everything becomes still again. Calm. Silent. As if nothing happened at all. But the universe remembers. The waves carry the memory far beyond the place of their birth. You let that memory flow through your imagination. You picture it brushing past stars, touching planets, sliding through nebulae, crossing galaxies. A wave that began with such immense power now softened by distance into a gentle tremor. And eventually, after its long journey, it becomes a lullaby humming in the quietest corners of the cosmos. This is the heart of this section. The idea that even the most powerful events the universe can create leave behind something gentle, something soothing, something that can lull rather than startle. It is a reminder that strength and softness are not opposites. They can exist together. They can come from the same source. They can flow through the same darkness. As you drift with this thought, your breathing slows, your mind softens. The edges of your imagination blur a little, like stars seen through a warm haze. And you begin to feel why gravitational waves are so beautiful. Not because they are loud, but because they are quiet. Not because they are destructive, but because they are delicate. Not because they are rare, but because they connect us to moments we were never meant to witness. So you picture the universe humming, a deep lullaby rising from the collision of two silent giants. A lullaby carried across time. A lullaby that reaches your mind like a slow tide rolling onto a peaceful shore. And in that soundless hum, you find yourself relaxing into the next chapter of this journey through the dark. As the last hum of the gravitational waves fades into the distance, the universe around you seems to settle again into its slow, breath-like rhythm. The darkness stretches wide and calm, almost like an ocean before sunrise. And as you drift farther from the merging black holes behind you, another presence begins to rise in your awareness. larger, older, quiet, but unmistakably powerful. Supermassive black holes. Giants that make ordinary black holes look like pebbles beside mountains. They weigh millions to billions of times more than our sun. They do not wander. They do not drift without purpose. Instead, they sit at the centers of galaxies, the way a heart sits at the center of a living body, holding everything in place with gravity so deep and so steady it becomes a kind of cosmic anchor. Here is your first micro hook. For all their size and power, supermassive black holes are quiet. They do not flare or roar unless disturbed. Most of the time, they simply wait, still, ancient, watching over the swirling galaxies that form around them. This contrast between enormous strength and perfect stillness draws you in. It makes you want to stay a little longer, just to understand how something so massive can feel so calm. Nearly every galaxy we know has one of these black holes at its core. Some are mild and faint. Others blaze with light as they feed on surrounding matter. But they all play the same role. They bind stars into vast spirals and clusters. They help galaxies take shape. Without them, the stars would drift apart slowly over billions of years, like grains of sand slipping through open fingers. Supermassive black holes do not force galaxies together. They simply give them a center to orbit, a center to trust. Think of that for a moment. A galaxy is not a random cloud of stars. It is a structure with a heart, and that heart is a supermassive black hole. That image alone is enough to form the next micro hook. The idea that something so dark, something so hidden, could hold the light of millions of stars in a slow, steady embrace. It reshapes the way you feel about darkness itself. Now let your attention drift to our own galaxy. The Milky Way, a swirling disk of stars, dust, and interstellar clouds stretching more than 100,000 light-years across. And at its very center, buried beneath clusters of old stars and ribbons of glowing gas, lies our supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A. Quiet, patient, heavy beyond imagination. From where you are floating in this story, you can almost picture it. A dark sphere surrounded by a glowing ring of hot gas, turning slowly. It does not shine. It does not flicker. It simply sits in the middle of everything we know, keeping the galaxy organized the way a lighthouse keeps ships aligned. You will never see it with your eyes. Yet its influence is everywhere. In the way stars orbit, in the shape of the galaxy's spiral arms, in the long-term stability of our cosmic neighborhood. Here comes your next micro hook. You live in a galaxy shaped by something you cannot see, something silent, something you might never think about during the day. And yet, every star you have ever wished upon, every meteor you have ever watched streak across the sky, every sunrise you have experienced exists because our galaxy has a steady gravitational core. Sagittarius A is not a threat. It is a foundation. Scientists often describe Sagittarius HR with surprising tenderness. They say it stirs the stars around it like a spoon in warm tea. At first, the comparison seems whimsical, but when you picture it, the image becomes beautifully clear. Stars near the center of the Milky Way do not move randomly. They flow in graceful orbits, following curves shaped by the black hole's gravity. Their paths bend gently, warming the imagination with their quiet, predictable motion. Pause here. Let that image settle. A spoon in warm tea. The stars swirling, not chaotically, but with intention, with rhythm. That single image creates another micro hook because it turns the vastness of the galaxy into something intimate. something domestic, something you can hold in your mind without strain. The deeper you drift into this idea, the more comforting it becomes. In the middle of the galaxy, where everything could be violent and disorderly, there is instead a slow dance, a rotation, a harmony, and the supermassive black hole is not a destroyer in that dance. It is the conductor, the steady hand, the quiet center that keeps billions of stars in formation. Now consider how large the Milky Way is, how many stars it contains, how many worlds might orbit those stars, how many stories unfold across the arms of the galaxy in ways we cannot see or imagine. All of that, every bit of it, is held together by Sagittarius A, a dark object invisible by nature, shaping the destiny of worlds that will never know its name. And here is another micro hook. There is something reassuring about a center, a place everything returns to, a point of balance, a place of gravitational certainty. Humans crave that feeling too, a sense of being held, a sense of alignment, a sense of belonging to something larger yet stable. Sagittarius A side becomes a metaphor as much as a cosmic fact, a reminder that even in the vastness of space, there is structure, there is order, there is a steady force holding everything gently in place. As you float farther into this calm, you start to sense what this section is really teaching you. Not just the physics of supermassive black holes, not just the scale, but the comfort of gravity itself. Gravity is not just a pull, it is a promise that things stay connected, that orbits remain, that stars do not drift into the cold alone. Let yourself feel that. Feel the idea of being held by something steady, something you do not always see but can always trust. The way the Earth keeps you grounded, the way the sun keeps our planet warm, the way the galaxy keeps its stars in gentle motion. And at the center of it all, Sagittarius A holds its place, silent, powerful, old beyond measure, a presence that does not need noise or brilliance to matter. Its strength lies in its stillness. Its influence comes from its patience. Let a final micro hook catch you here. The greatest forces in the universe are often the quietest ones. Gravity, time, the turning of galaxies. They do not demand your attention, they simply persist. They simply continue, they simply are. And as you drift deeper into this calm night of cosmic exploration, you begin to feel that same quiet steadiness within yourself, a recognition that strength does not always come from movement. Sometimes it comes from remaining centered, holding your place, creating gravity for the things and people you care about. So when you imagine Sagittarius A gently stirring the stars, imagine also that steadiness within you. A place of gravity, a place of calm, a place that holds everything together. And in this moment, drifting through the dark, you feel the comfort of knowing that even in the grand scale of the cosmos, there is a center, a heart, a point of balance, and that simple truth wraps around you like warmth. As you drift away from the quiet steadiness of Sagittarius A, the galaxy around you expands again, opening into long arcs of starlight and rivers of interstellar clouds. The dark between those stars feels deep, almost infinite, yet it is not empty. It is alive with drifting gas, scattered dust, and currents of matter that have been wandering for millions of years. And somewhere in that silent wandering, some black holes begin to feed. Feeding is not a violent word here. It is slower, gentler, more patient than you expect. A black hole does not reach out like a predator. It simply waits. And when a cloud of gas wanders too close, gravity draws it inward the way a breeze guides a drifting balloon. At first, the cloud barely notices. The pull is faint, a suggestion rather than a demand. But step by step, mile by mile, the pull strengthens. The gas begins to swirl, and the black hole begins to gather its meal. Here is your first micro hook. Imagine something as vast as a gas cloud being drawn in, not with force, but with patience. It is the slowness that makes the image memorable. The drifting, the spiraling, the way gravity shapes motion without ever raising its voice. This gentle inevitability keeps your attention fixed in the dark, watching the beginning of a transformation. As the gas spirals inward, something remarkable happens. The cloud does not fall straight in. It forms a disk around the black hole, thin at the edges, bright near the center, swirling faster and faster as it tightens. And the closer the matter gets, the hotter it becomes. Friction, compression, motion at incredible speeds. The heat grows until the disk begins to glow, not softly but intensely, a brightness that no single star could match. A brightness born not from fusion, but from motion, from gravity, from the graceful violence of falling. Pause here for the next micro hook. Think about how something can grow brighter, not because it burns, but because it moves, because it falls, because it transforms. That idea feels strangely human. How moments of pressure can ignite light we did not know we carried, how movement can turn into radiance. As the disk heats, the glow intensifies until it becomes one of the brightest objects in the universe. So bright that from across billions of light years, it outshines entire galaxies. One single feeding black hole can look brighter than hundreds of billions of stars. Not because the black hole shines, but because everything falling into it does. Light created in the final moments before disappearance. This is where the next micro hook settles. Imagine a single point in the sky glowing so powerfully that even the earliest telescopes, crude by today's standards, could see it across unimaginable distances. A lone spark in the deep, signaling across the ages. We call these objects quasars. The name comes from an earlier era when astronomers did not know what they were. Quasi-stellar radio sources, strange lights that looked like stars but were far too bright, too distant, too powerful to behave like any star we had ever known. It took decades before we understood them. Decades before we realized they were not stars at all, but black holes feeding with such energy that the universe itself lit up around them. Let this image pull you further in. A quasar is not just bright. It is a lighthouse of the early universe, a beacon shining across cosmic time, carrying information from an era when the first galaxies were forming, when the universe was young and restless, when gravity and gas were still negotiating how to build the structures we see today. The next micro hook appears here, natural and quiet. You begin to realize that every quasar you have ever seen in a picture or read about in a book is a message from the past. A light that began its journey billions of years before Earth even existed. And now that light reaches you, softened by distance, changed by time, yet still carrying the echo of its origin. Imagine drifting near one of these glowing disks, not close enough to be pulled in, but close enough to feel the radiance warming the dark around you. The light flickers in ripples. It pulses, not rapidly but with a slow rhythm, the kind that makes you think of breathing. It is not a heartbeat, but it feels like one. A deep, cosmic pulse rising and fading as gas churns in the disk below. Here comes another micro hook. Humans instinctively turn toward rhythm. Waves, breaths, pulses, movement that repeats and reassures. A quasar gives you that same sensation. It is the universe breathing in light, breathing out light, calling across time in a pattern only gravity could create. Now picture the gas itself, once cold, once drifting, once aimless, now glowing with the intensity of creation. The path it takes is beautiful, even if the ending is absolute. You watch as each piece of matter completes its spiral, brightens, heats, flares, and finally disappears into the black hole's horizon. And yet the story is not bleak, because the light it leaves behind continues, travels, spreads, becomes part of the cosmic background of creation. Let that thought settle gently. Disappearance is not the end of influence. Light continues even when the matter that created it is gone. A reminder that endings can leave beauty behind. A reminder that the universe does not always separate light and loss. As you drift farther from the blazing quasar, the brightness softens behind you. The pulse grows faint. The surrounding stars regain their dominance. And in this slight dimming, you feel something else rise. A sense of awe, a sense of scale, a sense that the universe contains both enormous quiet and enormous radiance, and both are essential to its story. Take a moment with that balance. Without the quiet of empty space, the quasar's brightness would be overwhelming. Without the quasar's brightness, the quiet would feel lonely. The universe thrives on contrast, on night and flame, on gravity and glow, on silence and pulse. The final micro-hook lands as softly as a falling ember. You begin to picture the distant light of quasars pulsing through the dark, not sharp, not harsh, but rhythmic, soft, a gentle strobe in the deepest night of the cosmos. A reminder that even in the farthest reaches of space, something shines, something calls, something speaks in the language of brightness, and that light, traveling for billions of years, eventually reaches you, reaches your imagination, reaches this quiet moment. It becomes part of the story you carry inside you, a story of gravity transforming into radiance, a story of matter becoming light, a story of the universe humming not just in darkness but in brilliance. As the glow fades behind you, you drift forward, ready to discover what lies deeper in the cosmic sea, the quiet between galaxies, the mysteries yet to come, the next chapter in this long, gentle journey through the dark. After leaving behind the brilliance of a quasar, the universe grows dim again. Not empty, not silent, just dim. The kind of dimness that feels like early dawn before the sun decides whether it wants to rise. A transitional quiet. And in this soft twilight of the cosmos, you begin to notice something the bright, feeding black holes often overshadow. Most black holes spend their lives hungry. They do not always have swirling disks of matter around them. They do not always glow. They do not always roar with energy or heat space until it shines. More often, they starve. For millions of years, sometimes billions, a black hole can sit in the deep dark of a galaxy with nothing to eat, nothing to pull inward, nothing to transform into light. It becomes still, patient, barely noticeable. Here arrives your first micro-hook. The idea that something so powerful can exist so quietly challenges everything you imagine about cosmic giants. In a universe full of blazing stars and explosive births, the notion of a silent, starving black hole pulls you in with its gentleness. When a black hole has nothing to consume, it fades, not physically, not in mass, but in visibility. Without an accretion disk, without matter heating up around it, the black hole becomes almost invisible. No glow, no trace, no light for telescopes to catch. If it were drifting right beside you at this moment, you might not see it at all. Only its gravity gives it away. Pause with that thought. Gravity as the last fingerprint of its existence. Gravity as the subtle, lingering presence. It bends the paths of stars. It curves the motion of gas clouds. It leaves faint signatures in the orbits of objects nearby. And those signatures become the second microhook. A reminder that even in silence, even in invisibility, influence remains. Imagine following one of these starving black holes across space. No bright halo surrounding it. No disk of glowing matter. No sound, no heat. Nothing but an absence. A shadow shaped by gravity. A faint distortion in the stars behind it, like the air shimmering over a road on a hot day. That mirage-like bending is the only hint that something massive is passing through. This is where the idea turns even more poetic. Some black holes do not anchor galaxies. They do not sit at the center of star clusters. They are not surrounded by swirling matter or neighboring stars. Instead, they wander, slowly, quietly, alone, drifting through the interstellar dark the way a lone seed drifts on a gentle breeze. Here is your next micro hook. The image of something so powerful moving alone through the dark is strangely calming, because the movement is not frantic, it is not lost, it is not searching, it is simply drifting, patient, unhurried, satisfied with the direction gravity provides. Researchers call these objects rogue black holes. They are the nomads of the universe, unanchored and unclaimed, traveling through regions where no stars shine and no gas clouds glow. Most of space is emptiness, and they pass through it with total ease. Nothing touches them. Nothing disturbs them. Nothing asks anything of them. Let that solitude settle into your mind, but not in a way that feels heavy, not lonely, peaceful. These wandering black holes are not abandoned. They are simply unbothered. They move through a universe that gives them all the room they need. They follow gravity's quiet instructions with no urgency and no resistance. Now take a slow breath with that image. Imagine floating beside a rogue black hole as it drifts. The stars are far away. The light is soft. Space feels almost like an endless lake at night, smooth and dark but welcoming. You can sense the pull of gravity, subtle and deep, like the gentle tug of a tide on your ankles. Not enough to consume you, just enough to remind you of its presence. Here comes another micro hook. In this moment, you realize that a starving black hole is not a threat. It has no appetite, no light, no noise. It is simply being, and in that being, there is a kind of serenity you did not expect. The universe is large enough to hold the loud and the quiet, the bright and the dark, the dramatic and the understated. Think about the balance in that. Some black holes blaze like lighthouses when they feed. Others dim to near invisibility when they starve. Yet both states are natural. Both belong in the story. Both help shape the structure of galaxies and the flow of matter. One does not outshine the other. They are two halves of a single cosmic rhythm. Let yourself drift deeper into the idea of cosmic starvation. Not deprivation, not suffering, just stillness. A black hole without matter simply waits. Waits for a wandering cloud. Waits for a passing star. Waits for gravity to bring something close enough to stir again. But the waiting is not restless. It is ancient, patient, timeless. The next micro hook appears gently, almost invisibly. Think about the last time you waited for something without urgency. A quiet morning, a slow afternoon, a moment without pressure or expectation. A starving black hole embodies that same calm. It floats, it waits, and its presence remains steady even without activity. Now pull your attention back to its gravity, the only clue, the only signature, the only whisper that it exists. Gravity curves the paths of galaxies. It bends the shape of the universe. It connects everything without ever needing to be seen. And in the case of a silent black hole, gravity becomes the only voice that speaks. Let that idea rest inside you. What if influence did not require visibility? What if presence did not require brightness? What if existing quietly could be just as powerful as existing loudly? This is the lesson the starving black hole teaches. That impact does not always look like light. That significance does not always announce itself. As you drift alongside this wandering giant, you begin to understand something more personal. That solitude is not the same as isolation. Black holes are solitary creatures by nature. They do not cluster the way stars do. They do not shine to attract attention, and yet their gravity connects them to the universe in ways deeper than light ever could. This brings you to the final micro hook of this section. You start to sense that the solitude of a wandering black hole is peaceful. Not empty, not cold, just quiet. It drifts through the universe the way a thought drifts through your mind right before sleep. Slow, unhurried, content to move without needing a destination. Let that peaceful solitude wash over you. Let it widen the space inside your thoughts. Let it soften the edges of your day. In the presence of a starving black hole, everything feels slower, deeper, calmer. The universe is not shouting, it is whispering. And those whispers remind you that stillness is not a failure, it is a state of being, a cosmic pause between bright chapters. As you drift onward, the rogue black hole continues its silent journey through the interstellar night. You glide beside it for one more quiet moment, sensing the calm it carries. Then, like two travelers passing on a dark road, your paths diverge. You drift forward. It drifts away. Both of you moving through the same quiet universe, each in your own way. And you let that solitude feel peaceful rather than lonely. As the wandering black hole drifts into the far distance, the universe around you becomes darker again. Not empty, not silent, but dark in a way that feels deep and clean. Like the calm surface of a lake just before moonrise. Stars sprinkle the sky in all directions, scattered across space like small, patient lanterns. And now, after traveling through regions shaped by darkness alone, you begin to notice something surprising. Light is bending. At first you think it is your eyes adjusting. Maybe the starlight is flickering. Maybe the distance is warping your perception, but the longer you watch, the clearer it becomes. Light itself is curving, bending around something heavy, something hidden. Not sharply, not abruptly, but gracefully, smoothly, perfectly. This is the first micro hook. Light is supposed to travel straight. That is one of the simplest truths we learn as children. Straight beams, straight shadows, straight lines across empty space. And yet here you are, watching light behave like water flowing around a stone. Something massive is shaping its path, guiding it as gently as a hand guides a ribbon through air. You drift closer, slowly, and the bending becomes more pronounced. The light from a distant star arcs around an invisible center, curving into a complete ring. A glowing circle suspended in the dark, perfect in shape, smooth in outline. It looks delicate enough to drift away if you breathed too hard, yet it is made entirely of starlight, pulled into shape by gravity. This ring has a name that comes not from poets but from physicists, an Einstein ring. Yet the name does not diminish its beauty. If anything, it enhances it, because it reminds you that science, at its best, reveals the poetry that already exists in nature. Pause here and let that image deepen. A ring of light floating around an object you cannot see. A circle drawn not with ink or fire, but with gravity bending light into shape. This is your next micro hook. The realization that black holes, which do not shine, which do not glow, can create some of the brightest and most exquisite shapes in the universe simply by being massive enough to reshape the path of light around them. Einstein predicted this bending a century ago, long before anyone had observed it. He imagined what would happen if a star sat directly behind a massive object, perfectly aligned from our point of view. The foreground gravity would distort the background light, stretching it into a ring. When astronomers eventually saw this effect, it confirmed one of the universe's most elegant truths. Space is not a rigid stage. It is a fabric, and gravity can reshape that fabric the way fingers can reshape soft clay. Here comes another micro hook. When you watch a ring of light around a black hole, you are not just seeing a trick of optics. You are seeing the shape of space-time itself, a visible outline of how gravity stretches the universe. Most forces are invisible. Gravity usually is too. But here, for once, gravity makes itself known through a shape you can actually witness. A circle drawn in pure light. As you drift closer, the ring expands, brightens, sharpens, and then something even more astonishing happens. That single background star begins to appear not once, but multiple times. Several images of it appear around the black hole, each one a different path that the light took after bending. Some images are faint, some are bright, some appear distorted, elongated, even mirrored. The star becomes a constellation of itself, scattered around the black hole like reflections on a curved mirror. This is your next micro hook. Imagine seeing one star appear 3 or 4 times in the same sky, each one equally real, each one equally distant, each one a separate whisper of light traveling its own curved road around gravity's invisible mass. It feels like magic, but it is not. It is the geometry of the universe revealing itself to you in a way few places can offer. You begin to imagine what it would feel like to look at the cosmos through a gravitational lens every day. The world would be softer at the edges. Shapes would curve in ways they never could on Earth. The sky would feel alive, flexible, textured. Black holes, in their quiet way, sculpt the night into something fluid. Now, pull in closer to the idea of a mirror made of gravity. Mirrors on Earth reflect light by bouncing it back. They need glass, metal, polish, precision. But gravity creates a mirror using nothing but mass. When light goes near a massive object, the curvature of space-time changes its path. It does not bounce. It flows, like a ribbon sliding along the edge of a bowl. Let that become the next micro hook. Be a mirror that does not reflect, a mirror that bends, a mirror that reveals hidden layers of the universe not by returning light, but by redirecting it just enough for you to see what lies beyond. It is a mirror that does not show you yourself. It shows you the universe transformed. Imagine now that you are drifting beside this gravitational mirror, watching the ring ripple softly as the black hole's gravity shifts slightly in response to distant motions. The ring seems to pulse, almost imperceptibly. Light brightens and dims in a rhythm driven not by the star but by the shape of space itself. This subtle motion gives the ring a kind of life, as if gravity is breathing. Take a breath with it. Inhale slowly, exhale slowly. Let the ring of light guide your rhythm. Let it soften your mind. Let it loosen your thoughts. This is the quiet power of gravitational lensing. It turns the universe into an artwork that shifts with perspective, with distance, with alignment. If you moved a few thousand miles to the left or right, the ring would warp. If the star drifted slightly, the image would change. If the black hole rotated, the light would twist with it. These rings are not fixed structures, they are living maps of the moment. Another micro hook glides in softly. You realize that every Einstein ring is temporary. Not fleeting, but temporary. A moment in cosmic geometry. A moment when background and foreground align perfectly. A moment when light, mass, and distance come together in a way that might not repeat for millions of years. And yet you are here, witnessing this alignment, experiencing the universe's precise choreography. Now imagine that the black hole begins to drift, the ring loosens, splits, the images of the star scatter again into their natural positions, the mirror dissolves, the geometry unwinds. In its place remains the undisturbed dark, familiar and gentle. But you have seen something rare, something that feels like a secret the universe shares only with those who linger long enough in its quiet. You saw light curve into a perfect circle. You saw multiple images of a single star. You saw gravity reveal the shape of space not through equations, but through beauty. And as the ring fades in the distance, something settles inside you. A feeling not of losing something, but of gaining a new way of seeing. A recognition that the universe is not rigid. It is soft. It flows, it bends, it listens, it shapes itself around mass, around motion, around time. In the dark you drift through now. You imagine mirrors made of gravity instead of glass. Mirrors that show you not your face, but your place. Your place in a universe where even loneliness becomes a kind of architecture. Where even darkness becomes a way of understanding. And with that quiet realization, you continue drifting forward, ready for whatever the next chapter in the cosmos wants to reveal. As the last traces of the Einstein ring fade gently behind you, the universe grows calm again. The light that once bent in perfect arcs settles back into straight paths, and the dark becomes smooth and unbroken, like ink that has just finished drying. You drift forward through this quiet expanse, feeling yourself settle into an even deeper rhythm with the cosmos. And now, the story of black holes shifts again. Because even though they feel eternal, even though they seem carved into the universe like mountains beyond time, they too have lifespans. They are not forever, not unchanging, not immune to the slow hands of cosmic time. A black hole evaporates. This is your first micro hook, something that devours light, bends time, and anchors galaxies can fade away. Something that feels immortal is actually temporary, and that contrast pulls you closer, invites you deeper into the mystery. The evaporation happens through a process called Hawking radiation. The name comes from Stephen Hawking, who suggested that black holes are not perfectly silent, that on their edges, in the tiniest quantum fluctuations of space, particles can appear. One falls inward, one escapes. The escape carries energy away. And in doing so, the black hole loses the smallest fraction of its mass. The idea is simple enough to hold, but vast enough to reshape your perspective. A black hole shrinks not because of anything it swallows, but because of what slips away. Because of the quiet leak of energy at its boundary, a leak so faint it takes longer than human imagination can truly grasp. Now comes your next micro hook. The smaller a black hole is, the faster it evaporates. Tiny ones disappear quickly. Larger ones fade slowly. Supermassive ones last longer than the current age of the universe. They sit at the center of galaxies, unbothered by time, evaporating so slowly that trillions of years may pass before they change in any noticeable way. Imagine that. Something billions of times heavier than the sun being worn down by a whisper. Not by collisions, not by explosions, but by the faintest shimmer of quantum activity at its surface. Pause for a moment with that image. It softens the black hole in a way nothing else does. You begin to see it not just as a force, but as a story unfolding across unimaginable time. A story that has a beginning in the collapse of a star, a middle in the shaping of galaxies, and an end hidden far beyond the lifespan of everything we know. Let your breath follow this realization, slow, steady, unforced. If black holes evaporate faster when they are small, then the final stages of their lives are quick. After eons of silence, after ages of waiting, a small black hole reaches a point where its evaporation speeds up dramatically. The last moments come like the tapering end of a candle flame. Rapid, bright, final. And here is the next micro hook. In their final breath, black holes do not collapse inward. They release energy outward. They vanish in a quiet flash of light. A soft, high-energy glow that marks the end of something that once controlled stars and bent the shape of space itself. Picture that flash now. Not loud, not destructive, not explosive. Just a brief, gentle pulse of light in a corner of the universe where almost no one is watching. A cosmic exhale after a lifetime of infinite gravity. And somehow, despite the scale, despite the physics, despite the years piled upon years, this ending feels peaceful. It feels appropriate. It feels like the universe honoring the black hole's long, quiet existence with a final moment of brightness. Move one breath deeper into that feeling, because this chapter carries more than astrophysics. It carries a reflection woven into the fabric of the story. Even darkness changes. Let that be the final micro hook. The idea that nothing stays entirely the same. That even the things you thought were immovable shift over time. That even the densest, darkest places in the universe eventually soften into light. It does not matter that the process takes longer than the age of the cosmos. What matters is that the principle remains true. Change comes, gently, patiently, inevitably. You breathe a little easier with that thought, because if something as powerful as a black hole can shrink, can fade, can release its last energy in a soft glow, then your own changes, your own transformations, your own quiet evolutions feel less overwhelming. The universe moves slowly, and so can you. As you drift through this quiet chapter of cosmic time, you begin to feel the comfort in knowing that nothing is frozen forever. Even black holes, with all their gravity and weight and mystery, are part of the great tide of change. A tide that does not rush or demand or alter things before their time. A tide that moves with patience, with gentleness, with inevitability. You breathe gently, realizing that the dark is not a final place. It is a stage, a moment, a shape the universe passes through on its way to becoming something new. And as you float through this endless night, you carry that truth with you. Even darkness changes, and so do you. As the last quiet idea settles in your mind, you drift farther into the dark, letting the universe open around you like a slow, unfurling sail. Stars begin to sprinkle across your vision again, scattered like fine powder against an endless canvas. Their light feels softer now, almost sleepy, as if the cosmos itself has lowered its voice. It is here, in this calm part of the sky, that the story returns to something closer to home. The closest known black hole to Earth is about 1,500 light-years away. A distance that sounds impossibly vast, yet in the scale of the galaxy, it is practically next door. If the Milky Way were the size of North America, that black hole would be a single quiet town 2 states over. Far, but reachable in thought. Close enough to imagine. Here is your first micro hook. Despite how enormous the universe is, the idea that a black hole exists this near makes you lean in. Not in fear, but in curiosity. Because proximity always deepens interest. It makes the invisible feel real. It brings the cosmic a little closer to your own sky. This black hole, the one we know about, is not dangerous. It is not feeding. It is not drifting toward us. It is simply there. A quiet presence embedded in a region of stars, minding its own path through the galaxy. And that calm presence reminds you that much of the universe is not dramatic. It is steady, predictable, peaceful. But then another thought slips in, gentle but intriguing. There may be black holes even closer, smaller, hidden, silent. Some could be the size of mountains compressed into a point no bigger than a breath, invisible to your eyes, invisible to your telescopes, invisible to everything except gravity. Pause with that idea. That is your next micro hook. The notion that enormous forces can hide in absolute silence. That something so powerful can be right there, waiting without ever announcing itself. It makes the night sky feel deeper. It reminds you that mystery is not out in the farthest galaxy. It is here too, woven into the fabric of your own cosmic neighborhood. Picture a black hole the mass of a mountain, dense beyond imagination, darker than any shadow you have ever seen, drifting quietly through space with no glow, no halo, no light at all. You would never see it. You would never feel it. It would move like a lone traveler on an unlit road, touching nothing, disturbing nothing, continuing on its long, solitary journey. And yet, despite being invisible, it is not undetectable. Here comes another micro hook. Even when the black hole hides completely, the universe leaves clues. The stars around it wobble, not dramatically, not noticeably at first glance, but with a subtle, rhythmic tug that reveals the presence of something unseen. Imagine looking at a star through a telescope night after night. It should stay still or trace a smooth, slow path. But if a hidden black hole is nearby, the star drifts slightly to one side, then back. A tiny sway, a gentle lean, a wobble so delicate it feels like the star is breathing. This wobble becomes a signature, a soft hint, a whisper in the dark saying something massive is passing through. Scientists watch for these wobbles the way a tracker watches for footprints, not because the footprint is the creature, but because it reveals the creature's path. The wobble is not the black hole, but it is proof the black hole is there, bending the star's motion with its quiet gravity. Let that settle into you. Gravity becomes the language the universe uses when light cannot speak. It is the message left behind when everything else is hidden. And here is your next micro hook. In that realization, you notice something about yourself. You begin to appreciate how subtle signs often reveal unseen truths. In the cosmos, in life, in your own thoughts. Not every truth is loud. Not every presence announces itself. Sometimes things show up only in the small shifts, the gentle wobbles, the almost unnoticeable changes. A star wobbling in the sky. A thought drifting quietly in your mind. Both telling a story without ever raising their voices. As you drift farther, you imagine the galaxy filled with these hidden objects, silent travelers, wandering giants, invisible but present, felt only through the way they influence the world around them. And instead of feeling uneasy, you feel something else, a kind of calm, a kind of respect for how the universe holds its secrets with such grace. These hidden black holes are not threats. They are part of the structure, part of the balance, part of the quiet architecture that shapes the galaxy. They remind you that a great deal of what exists cannot be seen, but it can still be known, understood, even felt. And perhaps this is the softest realization of all. You appreciate how the universe uses subtlety, how it reveals itself gently, how something massive and unseen can influence the motion of stars, and by doing so, reveal its presence with elegance rather than force. In this moment, as you float through a dark that feels peaceful rather than empty, you understand something fundamental. Detection is not always about brightness. Discovery is not always about staring hard. Sometimes noticing the smallest shift is enough. Sometimes the quietest signs carry the deepest meaning. You breathe gently into this truth. You let it settle in your chest. You allow the thought that unseen things shape the world more often than visible ones. And with that soft understanding, you drift forward again, deeper into the quiet night of the cosmos, ready for the next secret the universe is willing to share. The idea of hidden black holes drifts softly behind you as you move deeper into the quiet night of the cosmos. The dark feels smooth here, almost velvety, as if space itself is exhaling. And as you float through this calm, a new question rises, gentle and persistent, like a ripple underneath still water. What would it feel like to fall toward a black hole? It is not a violent question, not here, not in this quiet. It is simply curious. And so you let the thought unfold, slowly as if watching a feather descend through air. If you fell toward a black hole, something strange would happen. To someone watching from a distance, your motion would begin to slow. Each second would stretch, each moment would expand. Your fall would look less like a plunge and more like a gradual settling, as if time itself were holding you gently, refusing to let you slip away too quickly. This is your first micro hook. Time does not behave the same way near a black hole, and that difference pulls your attention in with the softness of a tide drawing foam back into the sea. From far away, the light coming from your body would stretch into deeper colors, sliding down the spectrum like a sunset that never reaches night. Reds, browns, faint dark tones, your light would dim. Not because you were fading, but because space itself was stretching the wavelengths as gravity deepened around you. Imagine that, your body becoming a slow, endless dusk, a sunset stretched thin across the sky of space-time. That image alone forms the next micro-hook, because it redefines what falling means. It is not the panicked rush we associate with falling on Earth. It is a transition, a shift, a drifting into deeper shades of the universe. To an outside observer, you would continue to slow until eventually you seemed frozen at the edge of the black hole, suspended in a moment that refuses to pass. A silhouette paused at the event horizon, red and dim and still. But inside your own experience, something very different would unfold. For you, time would feel normal. Your heart would beat with familiar rhythm. Your thoughts would move at their usual pace. Your senses would feel unchanged. There would be no signal that time was stretching, or slowing, or bending around you. You would simply continue to fall, feeling nothing unusual beyond the pull of gravity, which would feel no different at first than falling toward any massive object. Pause with that duality. It becomes your next micro hook. The idea that two realities can unfold at once, one for you, one for everyone watching. Both true, both contradictory, both belonging to the same moment. And this is where the quiet beauty of the paradox settles in. A black hole does not just bend space. It bends time, it bends perception, it bends the story of reality itself. And instead of frightening you, this bending feels soothing, because it reminds you that perspective is not absolute, that your experience and the universe's experience do not always have to match to be real. Let yourself fall a little deeper into that thought. Falling toward a black hole becomes less a descent and more a drifting through layers of altered time. A calm surrender to physics doing what physics does best. reshaping the world in ways that feel impossible and yet remain perfectly consistent. Imagine the view as you fall. Space warps around you in smooth curves. Light smears into arcs. Stars seem to stretch and twist, as if someone were gently pulling on the edges of the sky. Yet inside your mind, everything is steady, balanced, familiar. You do not sense the distortion, you only sense motion. Here is another micro hook. Sometimes the world changes in dramatic ways, but your interior stays calm. You move through a transition without noticing the edges, without feeling the shifts, without realizing when one state becomes another. A black hole fall becomes a metaphor for quiet change, and then you imagine the outside perspective again. Your red-shifted light, your slowing motion, the way you dim, the way you seem to dissolve into the horizon. A slow, infinite fade. A sunset that never fully sets. There is a softness in that image. Not tragedy, not fear, just gentleness. A long exhale written in light. A quiet surrender to the universe's rhythm. Even the physics of this moment feels tender when you describe it slowly enough. Not in equations, in sensation. Your fall is calm, your time is steady, your light is stretched, your image is fading, but your experience remains whole. And you realize something important. That paradox does not have to create anxiety. It can create wonder. It can create peace. It can widen your understanding of what it means to exist in a universe where truth looks different depending on where you stand. The outside world sees you slowing. You feel yourself moving normally. Both are real, both are valid, both belong. And that realization becomes the final micro hook of this section. The idea that complexity can be gentle, that contradictions can coexist, that falling into darkness can still feel calm because perspective shapes experience. You breathe gently as this truth settles in your mind. And with that breath, the whole paradox softens even further. Nothing about this fall is rushed. Nothing is frantic. Nothing is sharp. It is all slow curves and deep hues and stretched seconds. You let the softness of the paradox calm you. You feel the universe holding both realities at once without conflict. You feel your own thoughts settle into the same duality. And as you drift deeper into the quiet dark, you carry with you the comfort that even the strangest truths can feel peaceful when approached with patience. The paradox still lingers in your mind as you drift away from the black hole's horizon. That strange sense of slowing from the outside and steady movement from within settles into a soft, reflective calm. Space feels open again, wide and dark, yet somehow warmer than before, almost welcoming. And within that quiet, another layer of the black hole's nature begins to reveal itself, a layer shaped by motion, by spin. Some black holes rotate so quickly that if they were not so dense, they would flatten like a spinning ball of dough tossed by an invisible hand. Their rotation is astonishing, not in a chaotic or violent sense, but in sheer speed. These cosmic objects, already impossibly heavy, turn with such velocity that space-time itself begins to twist around them. Here arrives your first micro hook. Space-time is not supposed to twist. It is supposed to be a fabric, a backdrop, a stage. Solid in concept, even if intangible in practice. But near a spinning black hole, that fabric stretches and warps, pulled into spirals like warm taffy being drawn outward by gentle hands. The idea makes you look closer, lean in, imagine the softness in the tension. This stretching of space-time is not metaphor, it is literal. The faster the black hole spins, the more the surrounding space curves. Objects near it cannot simply orbit. They must be pulled into that rotation. They must swirl with it. the way leaves swirl in a circular current on a slow-moving river. Imagine yourself orbiting such a spinning black hole. Not close enough to fall in, but close enough to feel the tug of its rotation. If you glanced outward, away from the black hole, the universe itself would appear to whirl. Stars tracing long arcs, galaxies bending softly around your field of view, light curving in smooth, hypnotic loops. And here comes the next micro hook. Even though the universe appears to whirl at high speed, the experience would not feel frantic. It would not make you dizzy. In fact, it would feel slow, steady, gentle, because time itself is stretching with the motion. Your moments are longer. Your thoughts are unhurried. Your perception widens to accommodate the shifting scenery. The ride is hypnotic. Feel that word settle in your chest. Hypnotic, not overwhelming, not disorienting, just deeply, quietly entrancing. Like watching waves roll shoreward, again and again. Like staring into a campfire that crackles with perfect rhythm. The rotation of the black hole becomes a cosmic lullaby. Let the motion continue in your mind. You are not spinning wildly. You are drifting, cradled in a gravitational current that flows around the black hole's spin. You are part of the dance, but not controlled by it. The universe does not rush you. It matches your pace, your breathing, your quiet curiosity. Another micro hook rises here, soft and instinctive. You realize that movement, even rapid movement, can be calming when it has rhythm, when it is steady, when it unfolds with intention rather than chaos. The black hole's rotation has that quality. It is fast but not frantic. It is strong but not aggressive. It is simply a pattern the universe has chosen for this place. And so you continue orbiting. The light bends, the stars trace spirals. Space stretches like warm taffy around you. But inside your own perception, time remains consistent. Seconds slide into each other gently, like silk sheets slipping across a bed. You feel the motion without feeling moved. You sense the power without feeling overwhelmed. The black hole's spin creates something else. A region around it where all objects are compelled to rotate. Not by choice, but by the geometry of space-time. This region blurs the line between motion and rest, between orbiting and being carried, between choosing and drifting. That leads into the next micro hook. You begin to understand that drifting is its own kind of grace, a surrender not born of fear, but of trust. You trust the motion. You trust the curve. You trust the universe enough to let it guide your orbit. And as the rotation deepens, as the curves around you stretch longer and softer, another image comes into focus. You feel like you are riding a cosmic carousel. Not the loud painted kind from childhood fairs, but a quiet celestial version. A carousel carved from gravity and time instead of wood and lights. A carousel that rotates at impossible speeds but feels gentle and soothing because you are inside the flow of space-time itself. Pause here and let that image settle. A cosmic carousel, turning in the dark, carrying you in its arms. The universe spinning around you in slow, sweeping gestures. Stars drifting past like lanterns in a soft night breeze. This image becomes your final micro hook, because it reframes the black hole spin into something familiar and comforting. Something you can imagine without fear. Something that reminds you of childhood wonder blended with adult understanding. And as you drift in this imagined orbit, inhaling slowly, exhaling softly, the rotation wraps itself around your thoughts like a blanket of motion. You are moving, yet you feel still. You are circling, yet you feel centered. The universe turns around you without demanding anything from you. It simply allows you to experience the rhythm. This chapter ends not with revelation, but with sensation. The sensation of being part of a pattern older than the stars. The sensation of drifting in a dance choreographed by gravity itself. The sensation of letting go and letting the universe show you how it moves. You picture yourself drifting in that cosmic carousel, weightless and calm, carried by the slow whirl of space-time. And in that motion, you find peace. The memory of the cosmic carousel still lingers as you drift farther from the spinning black hole. The slow swirl of space-time fades behind you like a dream dissolving at dawn. And in its place, a broader view of the galaxy begins to rise. It stretches around you in sweeping arms of starlight, long spirals curling through the dark like glowing brushstrokes. From this distance, you can see the whole structure breathing as one. That gentle sense of wholeness becomes your first micro-hook. Galaxies feel so enormous, so intricate, that imagining anything holding them together seems almost impossible. And yet, something does. Something quiet. Something hidden. Something you might never guess unless you were already traveling through the dark like this. Black holes help galaxies hold their shape. The statement feels simple, but the meaning is deep. At the center of most galaxies sits a supermassive black hole. Not raging, not tearing stars apart, just existing. Heavy enough to give the galaxy a center, calm enough to let stars orbit freely. Its gravity acts like a slow, steady heartbeat that keeps everything aligned. Imagine removing that center. Slowly, over billions of years, the stars would drift apart. They would wander. The spiral arms would loosen. The structure would collapse into something shapeless, like mist dispersing in the early morning sun. Pause with that image. It becomes your next micro-hook, because it reframes black holes entirely. They are not just destroyers or mysteries or cosmic traps. They are anchors, quiet anchors, invisible but essential. They keep galaxies from dissolving into chaos. The gravity of a supermassive black hole does not reach everywhere. It does not need to. It simply sets the central curve. It gives the galaxy a foundation, and once that foundation is in place, stars respond naturally. They orbit according to the mass at the center. They follow paths shaped by that quiet pull. They remain part of something larger because the core keeps its promise. Let that settle in your thoughts. A galaxy, elegant as a seashell, held together by something you can never see. Something silent, something that does not shine. And yet, without it, everything would drift away. Now comes the next layer, one that deepens the story even further. Black holes may influence the birth of new stars, not by creating them outright, but by shaping the environment where stars emerge. When gas clouds drift near the center of a galaxy, they feel the collective pull of the stars, the dark matter, and the black hole. The gravity compresses them gently, slowly, over long stretches of time. And in that compression, dense knots begin to form. Knots that heat, knots that collapse, knots that ignite into newborn stars. Here is your next micro-hook. The idea that something associated with darkness can help create light. Not metaphorically, but literally. Black holes, the darkest objects in the universe, may play a quiet role in bringing new stars into being. The contrast is so soft and unexpected that it feels like a secret whispered across cosmic time. Imagine drifting through a star-forming region near the galactic center. Clouds of gas glow faintly. Dust curls in slow spirals. Young stars flicker like candles just beginning to catch. And somewhere beneath it all, the black hole keeps the environment shaped just enough for this creation to unfold. You might not see it, you might not even feel it, but its influence is everywhere, embedded in the structure, woven into the motion, hidden inside the balance. Another micro hook rises almost naturally. You begin to realize that balance often comes from unexpected places, sometimes from sources you cannot see, sometimes from forces you cannot fully understand. The galaxy's beauty is not maintained by brightness alone. It is maintained by gravity and stillness and invisible weight. And this realization shifts something in you. Gently, quietly, the way gravity shifts a star's path without disturbance. You start to see the black hole not as a threat, but as a presence that offers stability. A cosmic anchor that keeps the galaxy from unraveling. A point around which everything can organize. And suddenly, the vastness feels less overwhelming. It feels supported, structured, balanced. Let that comfort settle into your chest. Let it soften your breathing. Let it remind you that even in the universe's largest patterns, coherence arises from quiet places. Picture the galaxy now from far, far away. Its spiral arms curve with precision. Its center glows with old stars. Its motion is steady. And deep within that glowing core, invisible and silent, the black hole holds the shape. Not by force, but by gravity's gentle insistence. That becomes your next micro hook. The greatest sculptors in the universe do not use hands or tools. They use mass, they use time, they use quiet. As you continue drifting along the outer rim of this galactic vista, the idea deepens. Stability does not always come from the bright or the loud. Sometimes it comes from the unseen, from the background, from the forces that expect nothing, demand nothing, but hold everything together. And with that understanding, a final thought emerges, soft as starlight. You feel steadier knowing that balance comes from unexpected places. You breathe into that steadiness. You let it settle through your thoughts like warm gravity. You allow the dark, the silent, the hidden to feel less like mystery and more like support. And as you drift forward into the next quiet region of space, you carry this calm with you. The galaxy turns slowly, the stars find their paths, the black hole holds its place, and you continue through the dark, steadier than before. The idea of balance settles softly inside you as you continue gliding through the vast galactic dark. The spiral arms slowly fade behind you, dissolving into thin threads of light that stretch across space like quiet memories. And in this larger, softer darkness, another mystery begins to rise. One that is older than galaxies, older than stars, older even than the atoms drifting around you. Some black holes did not come from dying stars. They came from the beginning, primordial black holes, formed not in collapse but in creation. Born in the first fractions of a second after the Big Bang, when the universe was still wild and hot and expanding faster than thought itself. That realization becomes your first micro hook. Most black holes feel ancient, but these feel prehistoric. Not the kind of ancient measured in billions of years, but in fractions of seconds after time first began to tick. During that early chaos, space was uneven. Some regions were denser, some lighter, some rippled with more energy than others. And in those tiny pockets of density, gravity may have squeezed matter into black holes before stars even existed, before galaxies, before light had time to spread. Some of these primordial black holes could be astonishingly small, smaller than atoms, smaller than the particles that build atoms, tiny points of extreme density. drifting through the newborn cosmos like seeds of pure gravity. Pause with that image. Your next micro hook arrives in the quiet gap between thoughts, a black hole smaller than an atom, something so small you could never see it, so dense you could never touch it, so ancient you could never fully imagine the moment it first appeared. Yet it is possible. The universe allows such extremes. Other primordial black holes would have been larger. Some might have survived. Some might have evaporated through Hawking radiation long ago, releasing their energy back into space in gentle flashes that no one was there to witness. Their entire existence might have come and gone before the first galaxy even formed. And that idea strangely feels comforting. The universe lived whole lifetimes before stars lit up, before planets cooled, before life even approached the possibility of forming. It holds a depth of history we can barely begin to explore. You drift through that thought as though through a warm current. Then comes the next micro hook. Primordial black holes might explain mysterious cosmic signals, strange flashes of light, brief bursts of energy, ripples in space-time with no obvious cause. For decades, scientists have catalogued odd events and asked themselves what could create them. Colliding stars, exotic particles, unknown objects. But primordial black holes sit quietly in the background of these ideas, not proven, not ruled out, simply possible. And that possibility makes the mystery more beautiful, not less. Imagine a tiny black hole evaporating completely after billions of years. The final flash might send out a whisper of energy, a pulse, a signal, something faint but distinct like the soft pop of a spark in a campfire. A message that traveled across the universe, carrying with it the last breath of an object older than the first star. Pause here. Let that whisper become another micro hook. Ancient secrets drifting through space, not as warnings, not as shouts, but as gentle, persistent hints of what once existed. Hints that the universe remembers even what it no longer contains. And you begin to feel something inside you shift with that idea. You enjoy the thought of these old mysteries, not because they promise answers, but because they remind you that the universe carries its history everywhere. In light, in gravity, in signals so faint they blend with cosmic noise. Primordial black holes may never be confirmed, or perhaps one day, a detector will catch a pattern so unmistakably ancient that no other explanation fits. Maybe a gravitational wave will show the signature of an object too small and too old to have formed from a star. Maybe a sudden flash of energy will match the predicted fingerprint of a tiny black hole evaporating after 13 billion years. The possibility alone creates a quiet thrill. A soft curiosity that deepens rather than overwhelms. A sense that the universe is layered with stories waiting to be uncovered. And now, as you drift through this chapter of thought, something even deeper emerges, an emotional truth woven into the science. Sometimes the oldest secrets are not loud or bright. They are small, faint, whispering, easy to overlook unless you are paying attention. The universe hides its most ancient stories in subtle signals. In that realization, you sense something familiar, a personal echo. You recognize how often the past reveals itself not through grand moments, but through soft signs. A memory triggered by a scent, a feeling stirred by a song, a warmth that rises unexpectedly in the quiet. The ancient and the subtle move together. And the universe, with all its primordial black holes and faint signals, mirrors that truth. You picture these tiny, ancient black holes drifting through the early cosmos. Some were swallowed by larger black holes. Some evaporated into light. Some may still be wandering, so small and faint they pass through galaxies unnoticed. Yet their influence lingers in cosmic puzzles we still try to decode. You drift deeper into the calm of that idea. Ancient secrets whispering through space, not demanding attention, simply existing, waiting for someone curious enough to listen. And as you continue gliding through the dark, you carry with you the quiet joy of knowing that the universe's oldest stories are still out there, still echoing, still whispering their soft, ancient truths across the cosmic night. The whisper of primordial black holes fades behind you like a distant memory, soft and ancient. Space stretches out once more in its quiet expanse, a long breath held between stars. You drift through that breath, unhurried, letting your thoughts settle into the gentle rhythm of the cosmos. And as the darkness deepens, another detail of black holes emerges. Something subtle, something almost musical. Black holes can trap vibrations in space-time, not sound in the way we understand sound. There is no air out here, no wind, no medium for waves to travel through. But space-time itself can ripple. It can stretch and compress. It can hold vibrations like the surface of a drum or the strings of a cello. And when a black hole is disturbed, when it merges or swallows matter or shifts its shape, it can send out deep, resonant notes. This becomes your first micro-hook. The idea that the universe has a voice, not loud, not melodic, but real. A voice carried not through air, but through the fabric of reality itself. These vibrations are called quasi-normal modes, though the name hardly does justice to their beauty. They behave like the ringing of a bell after it has been struck. The tone starts strong, then slowly fades. Long, deep, smooth. A note that stretches across vast distances before dissolving into the quiet. Every black hole has its own pitch. Let that thought linger. Each one hums differently. A small black hole vibrates at a higher pitch. A larger one hums lower. And supermassive black holes, the giants at the centers of galaxies, create vibrations so low, so deep, that the wavelengths can be longer than entire solar systems. Here comes your next micro-hook. Black holes do not just sculpt space-time or bend light or anchor galaxies. They sing, quietly, slowly, patiently. They sing in vibrations too deep for human ears, too long for human senses, but not too faint for the universe to carry. Imagine drifting near one of these cosmic giants just after it has merged with another. The black hole would quiver for a moment. The vibrations would ripple outward. And if you could translate them into sound your ears could hear, they would resemble the lowest possible note. A slow thrum, a distant drumbeat, a heartbeat for the universe. You pause with that idea. Let it deepen, let it become the next micro-hook, because imagining the cosmos humming to itself changes something in you. It makes the universe feel less empty, less distant, less silent. You realize that silence in space is not the absence of motion, it is the presence of a deeper kind of sound. These vibrations travel far. They move through space-time as gravitational waves, the same kind of waves we detect when black holes collide. But the ringing tones, the quasi-normal modes, are different. They are short-lived but strong, resonant but gentle. They fade slowly, whispering the shape and size and spin of the black hole that created them. It is like listening to an echo to understand the room it came from. The shape, the depth, the hollowness, the walls. In the same way, listening to a black hole's vibrations lets us understand the structure of space-time around it. A cosmic fingerprint written in low, soft notes. Another micro-hook rises gently. You begin to imagine black holes as instruments, not chaotic or destructive, but resonant, tuned, shaped by mass and motion. You begin to hear the universe not as silent, but as full of long, slow drums beating in the background of time. Picture several black holes across the galaxy, humming at once, each with its own pitch, some deep, some deeper. Some so low the waves pass through your imagination, like distant thunder you feel more than hear. The universe becomes a quiet orchestra of gravitational tones. Now imagine drifting through those vibrations, not hearing them, but sensing them, the way you might feel the faint tremor of a train far beneath a city. A subtle pressure, a soft pulse, a rhythm that does not intrude, but surrounds. This becomes the next micro hook, the realization that the universe communicates in ways quieter than sound. It communicates through motion, through curvature, through gentle ripples that travel farther than light, carrying the story of events that took place millions or billions of years ago. You drift closer to one of these humming black holes in your imagination. The dark around it is not empty. It shivers with faint waves. Each wave is a message, a memory, a leftover vibration from some cosmic event long past. And as you float there, you begin to picture the black hole as something alive, not biologically alive, but rhythmically alive, musically alive. The thought settles softly. It becomes your final micro hook, the idea that the cosmos sings quietly to itself, not for us, not for any audience, simply because vibration is the natural language of space-time. And now, as you drift through this quiet, vibrating dark, something inside you responds. A sense of connection, of being part of a larger rhythm, a deeper pulse, a universal hum that has been echoing since the first black holes formed. You exhale slowly. You let the thought expand. You let the softness of the idea wash over you. The cosmos hums, the universe sings, and you, drifting through this quiet night, feel something inside you align with that song. The low cosmic hum fades gently behind you as you drift onward into deeper space. Everything around you widens, softens, expands. The stars grow more distant, scattered like tiny embers cooling in the dark. And in this great quiet, another presence begins to rise in your awareness. A presence so large it can only be understood by easing into it slowly, the way you approach a mountain seen from miles away. Some black holes are giants, but one stands above them all. The largest known black hole weighs 66 billion suns. Let that number settle. It is almost too large to grasp, a mass so vast it feels unreal. Yet the universe does not exaggerate. Somewhere far beyond our own galaxy, inside a distant cluster of stars, this enormous black hole sits at the heart of a galaxy, like a deep well carved into space-time. Here comes your first micro hook. You know black holes can be big. You have heard of millions of suns, even billions, but 66 billion shifts something in you. It bends your sense of scale. It stretches your imagination. It makes you lean in, not out, curious rather than overwhelmed. Imagine traveling toward a black hole that massive. Long before you reach the edge, long before light began to curve or time began to stretch, you would sense the gravity like a distant tide. Gentle, but unmistakable. A pull that is not urgent. A pull that does not demand your presence. A pull that simply exists, patient and steady. This black hole's event horizon is so large that if you placed it where our sun is, it would swallow our entire solar system. Every planet, every moon, every orbit. All of it would sit comfortably inside its boundary, with room to spare. Not consumed in fury, not torn apart dramatically, just held in place by silent gravity. Pause with that image. It becomes your next micro hook. Not the violence of destruction, but the scale of stillness. The enormity of something so wide, so deep, so heavy that entire planetary systems fit inside its shadow. And yet, despite its size, despite its unimaginable mass, it rests silently. It isn't tearing its galaxy apart. It is not devouring stars in a frenzy. It is simply there, anchoring the galaxy, providing gravity, holding shape, doing exactly what supermassive black holes do best, creating stability in the midst of vast motion. The quietness of that truth becomes another micro hook. The largest black hole we know does not roar. It does not blaze. It does not behave like a monster. It behaves like a mountain on a windless day, immense, unmoving, and completely at peace with its place in the world. Imagine drifting near such a giant. You would not hear anything. You would not feel anything dramatic. From a safe distance, the experience would feel like watching a massive cloud formation from across a valley. Majestic, yes, but calm. The black hole does not reach for you. It does not chase. It simply exists, shaping space-time quietly. That stillness changes something in you. You start to feel your own scale shift. Your thoughts grow lighter, your worries, the small, tight ones you carry inside your chest, begin to loosen. Not because they disappear, but because they find themselves surrounded by something too large to threaten them, too peaceful to amplify them. This becomes the next micro hook. The enormity of the universe does not belittle you. It softens you. It gives you a place to breathe. It reminds you that whatever burdens you hold, the cosmos has space for them. The universe has room for you to exhale. Now, picture the galaxy that holds this giant. A cluster of stars orbiting a dark center, not in fear but in harmony. The black hole's gravity provides the foundation. Stars follow the curves it draws. Gas clouds spiral inward at slow, patient speeds. Everything moves according to a rhythm older than imagination. You drift through that rhythmic image as though floating down a calm river. And then another thought emerges. If something so massive can rest silently, harming nothing, then silence itself becomes a form of power. Not empty power, not threatening power, but calm power. The kind that does not need to assert itself to exist. Let that become another micro hook. Quietness does not mean insignificance. Stillness does not mean weakness. The largest black hole in the universe is also one of the quietest. You let that truth settle into your breathing, slow, easy, unforced. The enormity of the black hole begins to shrink your worries gently. Not by erasing them, but by placing them in a wider context. By showing you that scale is relative. By reminding you that your life, your challenges, your uncertainties are part of a much larger tapestry. A tapestry that holds chaos and beauty and silence and transformation all at once. You drift farther, carrying this small shift inside you. The soft recalibration, the gentle realignment of perspective. You do not feel smaller in a diminishing way. You feel smaller in a freeing way. The way a single wave feels when it realizes it is part of an ocean. And as the giant black hole fades behind you, its presence does not leave. It lingers in your mind like a deep, slow heartbeat you can still feel even after the sound has ended. A reminder that enormity and peace can coexist. That gravity and calm can belong to the same thing. That the universe can be both infinitely large and infinitely gentle. And you drift forward, quietly reshaped by the calm of something so vast it can hold galaxies together without ever raising its voice. The enormous black hole you left behind becomes a distant shadow, fading until it feels more like a memory than an object. The universe stretches out again, wide and unhurried, as if giving you space to breathe. And in that quiet, another truth about black holes rises slowly to the surface. A truth that adds movement to the stillness, energy to the calm, light to the dark. Black holes can eject jets of energy at light speed. The idea arrives softly, not as shock but as curiosity. You picture these jets not as explosions or chaos, but as streams of focused light and charged particles bursting outward in narrow beams. They launch from regions near the black hole, not from the black hole itself. And that distinction becomes your first micro hook. The black hole remains silent, dark, calm. But the matter swirling around it, heated and twisted by magnetic forces, becomes the source of incredible power. Imagine an accretion disk glowing around a spinning black hole. Gas rushing inward, magnetic fields tightening, friction heating the material until it shines brighter than entire galaxies. And then, in a moment shaped by physics deeper than intuition, twin jets shoot upward and downward from the disk. Straight, narrow, precise, like cosmic lighthouses pointing into the void. Let that image settle. It does not feel violent. It feels deliberate, focused, almost elegant. These jets can stretch for thousands of light years, a distance so vast it turns into your next micro hook. Light itself takes millennia to cross the length of a single jet. Imagine that. A beam of energy traveling through space for ages, long after the events that created it have faded into the past. You drift alongside one of these jets in your imagination. It looks like a needle of light piercing the dark. The particles inside it move close to the speed of light, humming with energy. Yet your experience of it is calm. You are not inside the jet. You are watching it, floating near it, sensing its purpose. And what is that purpose? Here the story deepens. These jets seed galaxies with new materials. They carry energy and matter far from the black hole's core. They stir up gas clouds. They heat regions of space. They push material into environments where stars can begin to form. In this way, black holes do something unexpected. They help build. They help create. They help shape the next generation of stars and planets and worlds. Pause with that. Let it become your next micro hook. Black holes, often seen as symbols of destruction, also participate in creation. Not loudly, not intentionally, but effectively. Their jets mix chemicals across galaxies, distributing elements that once belonged to ancient stars, scattering the ingredients of future worlds. You drift deeper into that thought. Everything you have ever touched, every atom in your body, was once inside a star. That star exploded. Its matter traveled. Some of that matter might have passed through regions shaped by black hole jets, carried by their energy into new clouds of gas, eventually forming new stars, new planets, new possibilities. The universe builds itself in cycles. Collapse becomes ignition, silence becomes sound, darkness becomes light, and jets of energy from black holes become part of that cycle. The next micro hook rises from that cycle almost naturally. Destruction and creation are not opposites here. They are partners. They follow each other the way tides follow the moon. One reshapes, one rebuilds, one clears, one forms. The jets may look fierce, but their long-term gift is balance, renewal, continuity. Imagine watching one of these jets from far away. It looks like a thread of fire stretching through the dark. But as you follow it with your eyes, you notice the regions it touches. Gas clouds begin to glow. Dust shifts and swirls. New seeds of stars ignite slowly. the way embers catch flame in a quiet fireplace. And as you drift there, suspended in this grand mural of motion, another realization settles. You breathe calmly, seeing how even destruction brings creation. This becomes the final micro-hook of the section, a quiet truth that feels both cosmic and personal. The universe does not waste its endings. It recycles them, it uses them, it transforms them into beginnings. And black holes, the darkest objects in existence, participate in that transformation in ways both powerful and subtle. The jets fade behind you as you float onward. The darkness becomes soft again. The stars regain their places, scattered like grains of light across an infinite canvas. And you carry something new with you. The understanding that even the most intense forces in the universe can create beauty, can shape futures, can send gifts across galaxies. You breathe in that understanding. You exhale slowly. You let the calm rise through you. And as you drift deeper into the cosmic night, you realize that creation and destruction share the same quiet rhythm. A rhythm that pulses through everything you see. A rhythm that invites you to move forward into the next chapter with a steady heart. The long beams of the black hole jets fade behind you like distant lanterns extinguishing one by one. The dark grows deep again, but not in a way that feels empty. More like the hush between waves. More like the breath the universe takes before telling its next story. And in that stillness, your attention returns to the region where everything about a black hole becomes sharpest, quietest, and most extreme. The event horizon. You have visited it before in thought, drifting near its boundary, watching time stretch and light fade. But now the perspective shifts. You look at it not as an observer or a traveler, but as someone sensing the very structure of gravity itself. At the event horizon, gravity is strongest. It is not simply stronger than Earth's or stronger than a star's. It is a force so deep it changes the way space folds and the way time flows. It changes the rules, rewrites them, softens them, compresses them. And yet, when described slowly, the idea feels calm rather than frightening. This is your first micro-hook. Gravity does not shout here, it simply insists, quietly, absolutely. Just inside the event horizon, something remarkable happens. All paths lead inward. Not most paths, not many paths, all of them. It is as if space becomes a river flowing in one direction, and everything within it must drift toward the center. You cannot swim against it. You cannot float sideways. The river carries you with a strength that feels less like force and more like inevitability. Pause with that image. Let it settle as your next micro-hook. The idea of inward motion feels peaceful when you imagine it as drifting, not falling. As surrender, not fear. As the quiet hum of gravity shaping everything from dust to stars in the same patient way. The deeper you imagine moving, the stranger the physics becomes. But strange does not mean harsh. In fact, as you drift inward, the universe seems to quiet itself. Distances lose meaning. Directions melt together. The chaos of the outside world fades into a kind of cosmic silence. At the center lies perfect stillness, a point where motion stops. Not because something forces it to stop, but because the geometry of space-time allows no movement. No direction exists. There is no first, no next, no left or right. Only a single point where everything converges. This becomes your next micro-hook. For all the swirling, spinning, bending, stretching chaos that surrounds a black hole, the center itself is calm. Perfectly calm. The heart of the storm is not violent. It is still. Even time loses meaning there. This idea feels delicate when you approach it the right way. Time, something you live inside every day, something that decides your pace and your memories and your years, simply stops being itself. Inside the black hole center, time is not forward or backward. It is not measured or felt, it is simply absent. And this absence is not frightening. It feels like a release, a letting go, a kind of cosmic exhale after a lifetime of holding on. Let that idea ripple through you. It becomes another micro hook, quiet but deep. The realization that even time, the most constant part of your life, can soften, can blur, can dissolve gently when the universe decides to fold it away. Now imagine drifting through this region in thought. You are not falling, you are not rushing, you are simply experiencing the slow, inevitable pull toward the quiet center. Each moment becomes softer, each thought becomes lighter. The chaos that defines the outside world fades into a background hum, like distant waves brushing an unreachable shore. And then one more image emerges, not dramatic, not scientific, something purely human, warm and unexpected. You imagine a quiet heart beating in the center of chaos, a steady pulse, a calm rhythm, a signal of stillness in a universe that often feels too large, too fast, too unknowable. This becomes the final micro hook of the section. The idea that inside even the most extreme forces, there is a core of peace, a center that does not harm or rage or destroy, a center that simply is. The black hole's singularity is not literally a beating heart, of course, but the metaphor holds. The stillness is real. The quiet is real. The sense of everything converging into a single point is real. And when you imagine it, not through equations but through feeling, you sense something profound. Chaos can hold stillness, motion can hold silence, complexity can hold simplicity. And maybe, in a more personal sense, you can too. As you drift away from this imagined interior, carried outward gently by thought rather than gravity, the dark around you feels different, softer, less overwhelming, more familiar. You sense that the universe is full of centers like this. Not black holes exactly, but pockets of stillness inside the movement, calm inside the noise, quiet inside the chaos. You breathe in, you breathe out, and for a moment you carry that stillness with you. You let it settle in your chest. You let it soften your mind. You let it remind you that even in the most tangled parts of existence, there is a quiet heart at the center, steady and patient, waiting to be felt. The stillness at the center of the black hole lingers in your mind like a soft afterglow. You drift outward again, rising gently through layers of curved space-time until the darkness smooths into vast, calm distance. And in that distance, something new begins to shimmer at the edge of thought. Not a confirmed truth, not an observed phenomenon. Something more delicate, more speculative. A possibility the universe has not yet revealed. Some black holes may lead to white holes. The idea arrives like a faint spark, not bright enough to overwhelm you, but bright enough to draw your focus. White holes are the mirror image of black holes. Instead of absorbing everything, they would emit everything. Instead of pulling inward, they would push outward. Instead of hiding light, they would release it in a constant stream. This becomes your first micro hook. The symmetry is irresistible. For every great cosmic sink, perhaps a great cosmic source. For every collapse, an expansion. For every inward path, an outward burst. It feels like a story the universe might tell if it wanted to balance its equations with poetry. But no white hole has ever been confirmed. Not once, not in any telescope, not in any detector, not even in the gravitational waves we've begun to catalogue across the night. They are purely theoretical, existing only in the mathematics of general relativity. Yet their absence does not diminish their beauty. If anything, it makes the idea feel more like a myth the universe allows us to imagine. Pause with that. It becomes your next micro hook. Humans have always been moved by the unseen, by the maybe, by the almost. White holes live in that shimmering space between knowledge and wonder, giving you permission to linger there too. A white hole would be the ultimate opposite of a black hole. Nothing could enter it. Everything would be pushed away. It would be a fountain of matter, spraying light and particles outward in a steady flow. If black holes are perfect stillness at the center of chaos, white holes would be perfect release at the center of expansion. Imagine what that would look like. A sudden burst of light in an empty region of space, not explosive but persistent, a continuous outpouring of energy, like a cosmic spring bubbling from an unseen source. The thought becomes another micro hook, a sense of symmetry so satisfying it feels like something the universe would whisper, even if it never fully reveals it. White holes remain mathematical dreams of symmetry. And the word dream fits, because they exist most comfortably in imagination, in equations, in quiet speculation, not in the sky, not in the data. They occupy the gentle realm where curiosity meets humility, reminding you that science is not only about answers, it is also about questions that expand your sense of possibility. If white holes were real, their existence would rewrite our understanding of the cosmos. Not tweak it, not adjust it, rewrite it. They might connect to black holes through tunnels in space-time. They might allow matter to reappear in distant regions of the universe. They might offer glimpses of physics beyond the edge of what we know. They might reveal symmetry woven into the fabric of existence that we have only glimpsed in mathematics. Let that be your next micro hook. The universe may contain structures we cannot yet detect, phenomena we cannot yet model, truths we cannot yet comprehend. And this uncertainty feels less like frustration and more like invitation. Now imagine a universe where both black holes and white holes exist. One pulls matter inward, the other lets matter go. One encloses, the other releases. The flow of energy is not chaotic but cyclic, balanced, like waves rolling in and out on a shoreline made of space-time itself. There is a softness in that picture, a gentleness, a sense that even the most extreme objects in the universe might participate in a larger harmony we have not yet learned to perceive. You drift through that imagined harmony for a few long breaths. The dark around you feels wider, softer, less empty, more like a cradle for secrets, old and new. And then comes the final micro hook, the one this entire section has been quietly guiding you toward. You rest in the thought that the universe still keeps gentle secrets, secrets not meant to frighten or overwhelm, but to give you room to wonder, to remind you that not everything must be solved. Some mysteries are meant to be companions, not puzzles. Some unknowns are meant to comfort, not challenge. Some questions stay unanswered, not because they are beyond reach, but because they add beauty simply by existing. The universe does not reveal everything at once. It leaves space for imagination, space for discovery, space for dreams that sit just beyond the horizon of certainty. And as you float through this final stretch of the cosmic night, you feel the quiet satisfaction of someone who has wandered far, listened deeply, and returned with a heart softened by wonder. Black holes, white holes, possibilities held softly in the dark. You breathe slowly, letting the calm settle. The universe is vast. The universe is gentle. The universe is still telling its story. And tonight, you have drifted through one of its quietest chapters. And now, as our quiet journey ends, you realize something gentle. Black holes aren't monsters. They're reminders, Reminders that even in the darkest places, the universe moves with patience, rhythm, and silent purpose. That some mysteries aren't meant to worry you, but to soothe you, to lift your mind beyond the noise of the day and give you a little space to breathe. It's comforting, isn't it? Knowing that even the things powerful enough to bend light still follow soft cosmic rules. That deep in the universe, far from anything familiar, there are places quieter than any night on Earth. Tonight, you drift back from that darkness not with fear but with calm, with the sense that the universe is far larger, far steadier, and far more patient than anything you face today. Thank you for being here, for sharing this quiet moment, for choosing to rest your mind in this little corner of the cosmos. You're not listening alone. There are others breathing slowly with you, somewhere under this same sky, seeking the same peace. And for now, that is enough.